Well, good Tuesday morning. I'm glad you tuned back in. This week, what I'm doing is paraphrasing a sermon that Pastor Andy Wood gave at Saddleback a few weeks ago called Hope in the Darkness. Now, that sermon was given in light of the Cook's Corner shooting and the Maui disaster. But as we said yesterday, there are dark times in all of our lives that don't have to do even with outside influences. The same points that he made for that apply to us all the time. And yesterday, we talked about how God never wastes our pain, and that indeed he uses it in some way for good when we look at the whole perspective. And I think that really helps us to know that God is in control. And remember about God, he is loving and all-powerful, and nothing happens to us by accident. How we respond to it is our responsibility. Andy's second point was to make it clear that Jesus will always be with us in those times. You know, I've done studies. That phrase, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age. That's the one that he gave to the apostles when he was giving them the Great Commission at the end of the book of Matthew. But it's always been true. Always. In Psalm chapter 34, at verse 17, this was a psalm that David wrote. And by the way, later on in this, we're going to get to know David a little bit better. I think it's really important that we understand this. But this is one of David's psalms. And he says, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Isn't that how we feel sometimes? When things get hard, or I call them sometimes bumps in the road. But when unexpected things happen, yesterday I gave the illustration of my open heart surgery. But I've had many other things, and things that have happened to us, and where we ran out of money a few times, things like that. Never, ever fun times like that. But the truth that God is with us through all those times is always true. And I hope you find that encouraging. I know I really do. That we're never, ever alone. Jesus doesn't spare us from those things, but he does see us through them. Even the very hardest of times. One of those hardest of times is when God's calling us home, when we die, or when this body dies. We never die, our soul. If you're a follower of Jesus, he promises you that you already have eternal life, and your soul will live forever. Get in a new body that he will give you. But even that, if as long as you allow it, he will see you through that, and he will do it with you. How do I know? Because in another Psalm of David, he says that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because you, Lord, are with me. You know where that's from, don't you? I hope you do. Psalm 23, one of the great Psalms of comfort. And why is it so comforting? Because even in that time, we do not have to be alone. And you won't be. You won't be. Because he says, you are with me. Wow. I hang on to that. I hang on to all these passages. There's something, I believe it's something like 30 times. I could be off by a few, but around 30 times, Jesus or God says, don't worry, I am with you. I'll never leave you alone. I never will leave you alone. There is no more encouraging words for me from where I'm sitting. And I hope you find it that way also. You know, actually it's been probably a couple decades ago now, but the poem Footsteps in the Sand was written. We're going to take some time to listen to that poem. Let it minister to you and I, because the underlying truth of this poem is true. It's true. I know you may already know it, but it's not going to hurt you or I to allow it to refresh our spirit and drive home the truth we have just read in God's Spirit. And then I'll have another encouragement tomorrow. See you then. Enjoy this.
Footprints in the sand, he held me in his hand, and gave me strength to face the coming day. At times I felt alone, I was never on my own. Someday I'll understand. Footprints in the sand.
Last night I had a dream. I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord, and across the sky flashed scenes from my life. And for each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to me, and the other to the Lord. And after the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand, and I noticed that many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints.
Footprints in the sand, he held me in his hand. Someday I'll understand. Footprints in the sand.
Now this really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and lowest times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. And I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave me. And the Lord replied, my son, my precious child, I love you, and I would never leave you. During your times of suffering, when you could see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you.
Footprints in